I can have the blinds open if you want, so you can have like a little bit of...
Ooh! Oh, look at that. Black. What do you look out upon, James? Is there a street?
A petrol
there?
station.
Oh, interesting.
And amazingly, there was an attempted raid there, and I totally missed it.
Oh.
I know. I was really gutted when I found out. I was like, I would have had the perfect view. I'll take a picture and I'll send it.
I'd like to see. I'd like to have a view like that. A petrol station is probably quite a fun thing to watch late at night.
Well, because it closes at about 11.
Oh, that's
so
annoying.
it's not too exciting.
It doesn't have a night window.
Unfortunately, not. No.
Oh, I used to love a night window back when we were young.
There you go, John.
Oh, let's have a look. Gulf, Texaco.
Shell.
Oh, that's a good one, isn't it? Post-apocalyptic.
Britain. An ancient kingdom with legends of violence, cruelty, and torment in its blood. Join your hosts, Ross, John, and James, as they bravely tread where few would dare. Witness their journey into the horrific history of British horror. They are the General Witchfinders.
Ladies and gentlemen, goblins and ghouls, welcome to the third episode of the General Witchfinders podcast. I'm James in Bournemouth on the south coast of England.
John Pountney here, and I'm in Pontypridd in the south of Wales.
And I'm Ross in Dorchester in southern England, and today's episode we are going to cover Sapphire and Steel, Assignment 4.
All irregularities will be handled by the forces controlling each dimension. Transuranic heavy elements may not be used where there is life. Medium atomic weights are available. Gold, lead, copper, jet, diamond, radium, sapphire, silver, and steel. Sapphire and Steel have been assigned.
Sapphire and Steel are two interdimensional operatives. Time is a corridor that surrounds everything, but there are weak spots where time, implied to be a malignant force, can break into the present and take things. There are also creatures from the beginnings and ends of time that roam the corridor looking for the weaknesses to break through. Sapphire and Steel are two of the group of beings described as medium atomic weighted elements who act as guardians of time. The landlord of a lost and found shop has gone missing. The new landlord cannot be described by the remaining tenant, his face somehow hidden from her mind. Strange children are seen playing in the yard in anachronistic clothing. What were the experiments the missing landlord was undertaking? Why are there photographs throughout his flat with people missing from them? Starring David McCallum as Steel and Joanna Lumley as Sapphire, and produced by ATV. It ran from 1979 to 1982 on the ITV network in Great Britain. The audience figures were unusually high for a science fiction series, with the first episode gaining 11.8 million viewers. The show has never been repeated on UK terrestrial television, but has gained a cult following, with Sapphire and Steel's adventures continuing in audio form on Big Finish.
Sapphire and Steel was something I wanted to cover, mainly because this particular story is something I haven't seen since I must have been 5 or 6. Well, we could probably look it up because if it's never been repeated, I would have seen it on 1979, so probably about 5 years old, 5 or 6 years old.
Yep.
But there was the particular image of a faceless man on a set of stairs with some children around him. Which has been burnt into my mind as something which terrified me as a child.
It's haunted you.
Yeah, I've watched other Sapphire and Steels, but I've never watched this particular one. So I thought I'd bring this to the table and see what everyone thought.
Well, I shall say I had never seen a second of Sapphire and Steel. I was very aware of what it was, and I brought along this evening a copy of a book that Ross very kindly got for me, the the iconic Scarred for Life, volume number 1, the 1970s.
Yes.
And they wax lyrical about it. And so I'd read plenty about it, so I knew roughly what the plot was, and I knew it had never been repeated. And unlike Ross, I never saw it as a child. So it's one of those things, I never felt the need to kind of seek it out when they did kind of reissue it on DVD, when DVDs, or VHS even earlier than that. I didn't think, like, I must watch this. I was never exposed to enough people or enough information that said, you've really got to watch Sapphire and Steel. So I had not seen a minute of it until this week.
How about you, John? What's your Sapphire and Steel background?
I remember it existing as a kid, and I think I probably must have watched it, but I've got no memories of it. I've just looked up that it was on, as James said, it was on ATV, which then turned into Central in about 1982. So I think it would have been from the same studio that brought you the mighty Crossroads.
Indeed.
There's not much of a crossover, unfortunately. But yeah, so it's something I've always been aware of, and I know it's got a massive cult following, but again, something that I've never really... I don't think I ever really even knew what it was about, actually, so I was quite intrigued.
So after watching it, have you got a better idea of what it's about?
Yes, absolutely, certainly. I thought it was excellent.
Oh, that's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I really enjoyed it. Right from the get-go, I thought, leisurely pace, yeah, great.
It's right up your street.
I like anything with a leisurely pace.
I've watched
basically.
Assignment 1, which is some children's parents disappear in a house, and some very quite disturbing visuals pop up in that one, which straight away, particularly in the first episode, I was like, wow, this is great. And then it went on and on and on. I think some of the earlier ones are like 6 episodes long. I think Assignment 2 or Assignment 3 is a haunted railway platform with like a First World War soldier on there. And I think you would love that one, John.
Yeah, that sounds good.
But with a ghost hunter trying to investigate everything.
That sounds good, yeah.
But again, it goes on for quite a long time. This one, I was quite pleased to find out it was 4 episodes long. When we was talking on our WhatsApp group before watching it, when you was a bit concerned that it was more than 1 episode, John, and me and James were saying, we can skip half of it because it's just a recap of what happened in the episode before.
Yes, the reprise.
And I felt this one was probably, still felt it quite slow, but I think it was about the right length for one of these stories.
Yeah, it's always hard to watch something in one sitting that's designed to be watched over
Week on
a
week.
month.
Yeah.
So you'd watch a 25-minute episode, and then you wouldn't see it again for a week. And at the point it was transmitted, unless you were really rich, you wouldn't be able to record it either.
No, well, me and John were talking about, because I even though I've got this on DVD, I'm so lazy I can't be bothered to get it out of the cupboard. So I subscribed to BritBox in order to watch it again. And
First world problems right there.
While I've been working, I've been having Tom Baker Doctor Who from his first story just playing in the corner of my screen. You're right. I find classic Doctor Who, if I'm sitting there watching it episode after episode, it's like, God, this is so drawn out, and like there'd be like whole episodes which are like complete filler. I find it much better when I'm like paying half attention to it, and I can just stop and look at the bits when they get interesting, and just to have the rest of it sort of go over me. You're right. We've got to remember these things were meant to be watched episodically, not just to binge watch all in one go.
Yeah, and for me, it's much more... It just gives the stories room to breathe, and that's what I hate about modern TV, is that, particularly if we're talking particularly about Doctor Who, a 40, 45-minute, 50-minute episode is just so jam-packed with stuff happening that characters and whole kind of character arcs within episodes become nonsensical. And there was one episode in Jodie Whittaker's run in the last season, which I can't remember the name of because obviously I can't remember hardly anything about it. But there was a girl whose friends died at the start of the episode, and then obviously at the end of the episode, which is, a day later or something, she's just going off with some other people, and she's totally forgotten the fact that her friends died 40 minutes ago in the episode, which that's something I really, really dislike about modern Doctor Who is the one episode, kind of Star Trek Next Generation format, which Star Trek used to do quite well, but I do find Doctor Who just too much in it happens in an episode now.
Yeah.
And there's no there's no tension or kind of
Well, you know it's going to be resolved by the
horror
end.
or within 40 minutes this is all going to be, they're going to be off in the TARDIS again having a nice time. And this, obviously with this as well, what you have with Sapphire and Steel in this particular story is the brilliant, at least 2 brilliant cliffhangers, which I absolutely love.
Well, should we go through the story then?
The first note I've written is music is bombastic, but it does also, again, fit the title scans to the melody, which is always my test.
Go on then.
So that's a good. I can't remember.
Sapphire and Steel,
something like that.
I just find it incredible how many TV programs try to do the Star Wars crawl. And just fail dismally, don't they?
Well, they did it with blue screen with some letraset on a piece of paper, didn't they? Moving along.
It's not designed for 42-inch television screens, is it?
No. So the first thing that I found interesting is that they basically just kind of pop up out of nowhere in this junk shop. They've seen, Joanna Lumley has seen these weird kind of ghostly children, and then they're in the back of this shop having a look around the kind of storeroom area, I think, or something like that.
So, first of all, it's a lost property shop. For like, these only exist in this and Bagpuss. From my little exposure to Sapphire Steel, it feels that what happens is if old things are brought into the present, that can allow time to break through. So I think that's what's going on in this space. They've had a report of time breaking through in this building, so that's why they've been summoned there to try and fix that.
And this is an idea which I really liked straight away. So they talk about these trigger items, which I thought was really interesting because I'm a big fan of Ghost Adventures with Zach Bagans on I forget which channel it's on now. 128 on Virgin, whichever one that is. It might be on Really. So Zach Bagans.
Is that really with a question mark? Or...
it might be, or it might be an exclamation mark. Really? So Zach Bagans is the Ghost Supremo, Ghost Hunt Supremo. They talk a lot about these kind of trigger items. They'll bring an item into a location to try and trigger the ghost interaction. and that's an idea that I really enjoy. So if it's like, if it's American Civil War, Zach Bagans will dress up in like an American Civil War outfit and then walk around in a field.
Yeah.
And then, or maybe lie down on the floor and pretend to be dead in the Battle of Gettysburg or something. and that will obviously bring the ghost back because
obvious.
So that's something that I found very interesting, that this is something that's mentioned in this context like 40 years ago, which I thought was quite interesting.
Something which I forced my wife to watch 3 stories of Sapphire and Steel now. And one of the things which she gets quite irate about is...
Love and marriage.
Is the way... it's the character of Steel. The way he just like...
He's a bully.
He stomps around.
He's a bully.
Bullying people. She was going, I know they're meant to be like aliens or interdimensional elements or something,
form.
And they're not human. He goes, but I just can't stand the way he just stomps around and...
Get it back! Get it back! Get it back! As he shouts for about 10 minutes in one episode.
I actually found that really interesting, and I thought, you've got a lead character that is not just, a schmoozing kind of handsome Cary Grant figure. It's someone who's a bit kind of irritable and kind of a bit First Doctorish, that's kind of... Yeah, because things these days are written so kind of bloody...
They've got to be likeable, haven't they?
Oh, everyone's got to be likeable, and life isn't like that. And obviously, they're meant to be these kind of weird, kind of out of time characters that are they aliens? Are they, whatever they are?
Well, I think it's quite brave for Sapphire and Steel to go through all of the. I think they did 5 or 6 assignments, and it's never made clear who the fuck they are.
Yeah. I think that's great.
So they're trying to find what the trigger item is, which is causing this breakthrough in time. They decided it's not any of the objects which are in the storeroom.
Well, I've written down time break. I can't really remember what that means, but I quite liked the idea. And then I've written down xylophone, oboe music is very hammer.
Yes.
So the incidental music at this point is really hammer. It's like... on a xylophone. And then... on an oboe, which is my kind of music.
then every so often they would play like a words and pictures sort of.
Well, I was going to say that was that
effect.
undercut. That's exactly it, Ross. That undercut any kind of dramatic tension for me was that every time anything a bit supernatural happened, there was the rising tone of ring, which is exactly the same musical thing they used in the BBC's Rent-A-Ghost. Whenever anyone was doing any form of magic at all, maybe making pantomime horse Dobbin suddenly disappear and then appear in Christopher Biggins' department store. Who knows? But, I was just like, ring, oh, blimey, here we go again. Yeah.
So they're obviously telepathic. They talk to each other by the medium of telepathy.
Yes. Stuart and Lumley would keep going, yes.
Yes. But I've put peak Jezza Lumley. She was absolutely at her peak here. She's fantastic. And the way she speaks, it's just, she's got the best voice in the universe.
Kept saying, oh, she's so glamorous, isn't she? And Beck's going, oh, shut up.
I will say that I'm no fan of Joanna Lumley, really, but in this she did look brilliant.
Yeah, she did.
I did notice that her hair style varied wildly from scene to scene. At one point it's like a Purdy cut, New Adventures Purdy cut, and very straightened. It goes into the next scene and it looks almost permed. So it's the continuity isn't great. But then one bit that I really enjoyed then was this bit where they're in amongst all these umbrellas, and they hear these kind of crow sound effects, but then it's kind of spoilt by some really horrible video effects where they're kind of beamed into some
pictures,
framed photos.
When she's been attacked by the umbrellas, I said to Beck, the thing is with special effects, you never want to look at it and think, I know exactly how they're doing that.
But I liked that idea. I thought a commonplace thing, finding something sinister in a commonplace thing is something that I always enjoy. And that's something that Stephen Moffat did quite often with Doctor Who. And then I think he reused that idea too many times where it was shadows are evil. Statues are evil. But then after that...
Sleep dust.
Yeah, after that, it all became a bit like, oh, what can we... what's a commonplace thing we can turn evil? Whereas umbrellas, like, when they're pointing at you, it's like, actually, like, these are a bit weird.
I thought it was very brave of Sapphire and Steel to use the umbrella as a potential threat, not once but twice.
Yeah.
And in one of the later episodes, it's held against Joanna Lumley's eye.
Which was, I found quite threatening.
We keep seeing these anachronistic children playing out in the backyard, and they're singing a nursery rhyme, aren't they?
Yeah.
And a nursery rhyme was used in the first assignment, I believe, as that was what the trigger was, that someone was using an old nursery rhyme in the modern day, and that's what brought things through.
Yes.
Yeah, but nursery rhymes are always creepy, especially when creepy children are chanting them.
All these kind of ideas, I want to say before we get into the meat and drink of this story, is that this very Nigel Neal, who was obviously the writer of Quatermass, like these kind of, the idea that there's something sinister within, again, the commonplace nursery rhymes, the history of places, sense of place, all those ideas are very Nigel Neal. And I've got to say, they are the kind of ideas that I absolutely love in a sci-fi or a horror, and if it's anything like that, I'm in. I'm much more in. I think it's a very British way of doing horror. I'm much more in than if it's even though I enjoy sci-fi, which is Star Trek or Star Wars. I think this is a very, very different kind of way of exploring ideas and themes.
Do you think I was right in bringing this into a horror podcast? Because so many people call this science fiction, where I feel like there's no science in it whatsoever.
Well, the science in it is codswallop,
isn't it? It's just spooky.
Yes. Yes, the science is utterly codswallop, including, and, once again, we're jumping around a little bit, but, that doesn't hurt. The introduction they give you at the start of every episode, and I've got a transcript of it here.
Booming voice.
All irregularities will be handled by the forces controlling each dimension. Transuranic heavy elements may not be used where there is life. Medium atomic weights are available. Gold.
Fine, that's on the atomic table.
Lead.
Fine, also on the atomic table.
Jet.
What? There was jets? Every time they said it, I was like, jet?
Well, being a East Yorkshire boy,
yeah,
or North Yorkshire, whatever the hell bloody regional authority it is now. Because whenever I see this on Twitter, some jumped up idiot will message me and say, actually, Filey is East Yorkshire, not North Yorkshire, or the other way around.
Yeah.
Jet is something a bit like coal, but I think it's potentially a bit harder than coal. And I think it's found under the sea, and it was used a lot for Victorian mourning jewellery, as in when someone has died.
Well, thank you, John. Every day's a school day. Thank you. Because when they said it, I was like, what's that?
It's
not an element, though.
It's not an element. It's where jet black comes from, as in jet. So it's not
interesting.
It's not a jet plane.
Interesting. All right. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Or Jet the Gladiator.
Or Shame. I've put down, though, that for me, and I think you guys have said this, that the pacing was glacial. It's real, and for me, that was the most interesting thing watching it. In the 3.5 decades since this has been on, how much television has changed.
Yeah.
And there were 2 moments where I thought, my God, TV has really, really changed. Number one, in the pacing of just the show per se. And just kind of like there was no real rush to kind of like get the information across or anything like that.
Nor was there a ticking clock in the narrative at all either. There was no like, we need to get this done by this.
No. And then also later on in the final episode, so this is the dramatic denouement. Sapphire and Steel find themselves trapped in a photo. And bearing in mind, this show went out primetime TV. A large chunk of the final episode is just a picture of a photograph. and the camera just shifting left to right, indicating who's talking. I thought, amazing. They wouldn't do this now. This really wouldn't happen. And when we find out that, the nemesis of the show is someone who can move through any photograph in the world, Joanna Lumley goes, can we follow him? And I've just written, not on this show's budget. No, that's not going to happen. But I thought now, if you were making it now, that's exactly what would happen.
Yes.
And it'd be far more cool and like diving through different dimensions of pictures and all the rest of it. Whereas now it's like, no, we just have to hold up the same 4 pictures over and over again.
They hear some music upstairs, some modern music upstairs. So they go up and they meet the...
It's quite tawdry, the music, I thought.
Yes.
It's a bit like porn film music, wasn't it?
Well, my notes, it just says porno pivot. The episode suddenly goes on a porno pivot because they go in and who do they meet, Ross?
They meet the last remaining tenant of the house, which is a young girl who's getting ready to go out to work at a club.
In a club.
Inverted
Beck,
commas.
we kept saying, is this a prostitute? Is she a prostitute?
I thought she was.
Yeah,
my immediate thought was she was.
And when I've been reading, anything I've been reading online, they describe her as a prostitute.
I thought she was just a stripper or something.
Well, yeah, I just thought...
Not just a stripper, I don't want to come across as misogynistic here against sex workers. But I don't think she's necessarily written as a prostitute.
I think it's heavily implied that's what she potentially is. So she's saying flatmate's gone missing for quite a long period of time, who was her only friend. The landlord's gone missing, who was...
a kindly old
gentleman. But there's a new landlord who leaves her alone. All she has to do is leave her rent money, and that's fine. Which is nice. When she's heavily interrogated by Steel, who pretty much like shouts in her face.
Yeah, which I quite enjoyed. Again, I was like, oh god, like he's again, it's not like sugarcoating it. He's quite aggressive with this person he's never met before, which I was like, whenever I watch anything old like this, I just think that the way that they go about the story construction is much more brave than television now. What I have written is that the dialogue and actually the whole staging of it is much more like a radio play or just a play.
Yes.
So it's like
one set, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's one studio set,
which is brilliant, and I really enjoy that kind of thing where it's not flash bang wallop to kind of draw you in.
Well, it's all in the one building, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there's still more sets than there were in the Frankenstein film we covered.
Yeah. So it's all about character, writing, a bit of production design, because the sets are really good actually. The woman who plays Liz, I thought, oh, hang on, I recognise Liz.
Beck looked her up as well.
Yeah, she was.
What's she been?
She was Sarah Sugden in Emmerdale for a very long time. So
she's been in pretty much every soap, I think.
Yeah. Does that mean anything to you, James?
No, sorry.
To be honest, I haven't watched Emmerdale for 25 years, so she would.
Is Mandy Dingle still in it?
But she was good. I thought she was good.
She started off really badly, and I think she kind of warmed up with the role as she went along.
Well,
her accent was terrible, and it was really like, oh, this is a Cockney accent, and oh, this is London accent, and it was just very lazy, I thought. Whereas, as it went along, the more she had to do, and the kind of more, emotional range she had to show, it actually, her performance it improved at that point.
So it occurred to her that she couldn't remember what the face of the new landlord looked like.
That was good.
The more they pushed it, and I thought that's a really creepy idea. That when someone pushes you to say, "Well, what does that person look like?" Is that I can't remember. Why can't I remember? Yeah. Why hasn't it occurred to me that I don't know what they look like? That was pretty good. I think the children ask if they can hurt the people, which I thought was quite creepy. And you've seen at this point the landlord only from the neck down, and then he opens the door, and then you have the reveal that he has no face, which was that. I think that is the thing which has been stuck in my mind ever since I was a kid. That scene there.
Brilliant cliffhanger. I thought that was a fantastic cliffhanger, and you don't have enough. You talk about duff moments. Everyone goes on about that crap on EastEnders these days.
Yeah, but they have a faceless man in it.
Yeah, if EastEnders finished on a faceless man coming into one of the, Ian Beale's bedroom, I'd actually watch it, EastEnders. But
well, we will take and Ross, feel free to edit this out. But I thought the other day I might actually start watching EastEnders, because apparently the plot is Sharon Watts wants to kill Ian Beale, and she's going to kill him via sex. She's going to shag it. I was like,
they're also now married.
No.
Yeah, they got married. They got married while he was on his deathbed, but I think they had got married after she had tried to kill him.
Via sex? Because also
no, I think she hit him over the head at first. Basically, Ian Beale let her son drown when EastEnders did a thing recently where a ferry sank in the Thames.
Yes, I remember reading about that. Yeah.
So,
oh man,
high camp as usual.
Okay, right, fine. Okay, thank you. Right, so back to Sapphire and Steel. Go on, Ross.
So then we have the next episode. So the first half of the second episode is basically
recap
the end of the
first episode.
I have written obvious multicam setup with vision mixing, and I think this is the point where, to me, it really made sense, and I could see it in there's a bit where they talk over each other, and they obviously, rather than edit it out, they just went with that take and said that take is fine. And that means that what they're doing is film in with 2 or 3 cameras, the set. The actors have to hit their marks on the floor and do all the stuff, and then what you think is an edit is actually the vision mixer going between the 3 cameras to give that kind of. It's not what's called a 1 camera kind of drama. It's like a multicam setup, and I think that's where you get this kind of really kind of lo-fi, quite claustrophobic, like a theatre kind of feel to it, which I found really, really engaging. I think for modern audiences, they would look at this and they'd run a mile, but I think it's something that really appeals to me, where you're watching actors acting and kind of interacting, rather than just watch actors deliver a line to a camera or just do something for a take. The actual take might be 3 or 4 minutes where they have to do quite a lot.
I think this is where the guy starts coming up the stairs.
Yes.
And then he disappears, but then
Ring.
Sapphire can make time go backwards. She's trying to make this guy reappear on the stairs so they can see what he looks like.
Yes.
Again, Steel is just
shouting at her,
bellowing at her to
bring
make
it back,
it
bring
happen.
it back.
And she's having trouble doing it. But for me, that was one of the few parts in it which I felt was actually quite spooky. The sound
Yeah.
the lo-fi effects at that point were kind of like, I said to Beck, sorry, listeners, I keep referring to my wife when I'm doing
The
this
good lady
podcast.
wife.
Yeah, so, but this is someone I watch television with. I said either television from this sort of period has got an uncanny semblance to what my nightmares are actually like, or my nightmares have been shaped by watching television at this sort of period when I was very impressionable.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's interesting.
So what that looked like and what that sounded like is the kind of things I wake up from.
Oh, and the setting as well, like the dingy kind of stairs.
That type of stairway is constantly recurring in my dream.
I'd love to live in a house that looked like that.
I found that quite unnerving, even though this was a really cheap old television program.
I don't think it was cheap. I think it just looks cheap now because production values now are so.
But that made me feel a little bit like, oh, I'm probably going to relive that at some point.
I thought that sequence was really, really good, and I thought it worked really well because there's this kind of mix between the video effect of the man on the stairs being this vision mixing thing where they put this ripple effect over him, but then there's this bit where David McCallum is holding a photographic print. And that starts glowing with heat.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. He's surprised by hot paper.
Yeah.
But that is the front projection reflective stuff, which I can't remember the name. I think it's called Mylar or something like that. And you shine a light at it, and it will reflect directly back into the camera lens, making stuff look very, very hot or reflective. So if you remember, guys, the cover of Slade and Flame.
Who doesn't?
All of Slade has stood there in very, very reflective clothes for the brilliant film Slade. But actually, is the film just called Flame, or is it called Slade in Flame?
There was also a kid. Do you remember that advert for about get yourself seen? Yeah. There was a kid
Absolutely.
had like a silver suit, which I really, really wanted when I was growing up.
I think it's the same kind of stuff.
To
so
make
that's like
sure
a theatrical
that your
effect.
bite can be seen late at night.
Use some tape
if you like.
Yeah.
And get yourself seen. Sorry.
You treasure and get yourself seen. Make it big, make it bold, make it bright, and get yourself seen.
And get yourself clean as well.
Get yourself clean. That's what haunts my dreams. No, I was going to say, rather than kind of spelling out all 4 episodes for our dear listeners, I think we can just kind of cut to the chase with it all, really, which is a malignant force has somehow, from they explain at some point, from the birth of photography, has managed to get into the first ever picture, and then from then has had the ability to leap from every picture that's ever been taken.
But can't escape out of the pictures.
Can't escape. But the old man of the building has been doing photography experiments. More on that in a second, John, for you. This is what I want to know about, the science behind this.
Yeah.
And that has released this malignant force, and he has made the old man disappear. Liz Dupre, is she a prostitute? Does she work in a nightclub lady? Her friend, he's made her disappear as well, and he has brought the children through from a Victorian photo to the present day. There you go.
Well done. Did you understand why he was bringing the children through?
No, not at all. That was the one question for me. My understanding was he was captured by the first photograph.
Yeah, like a genie in a bottle.
So basically, before that, he was just around, and then the act of the photograph happening captured him somehow.
He can be in any photograph, and it's always got someone who's looking the other way.
Yeah.
Yes. What I thought was that, does that mean that he's always in the background of things like readers' wives' pictures? That was my honest immediate thought. or any dodgy Polaroids. It's like, and then I was thinking, oh, how are they going to get that? They were like, in the picture, he might be outside or behind the wall. I was like, whoa! But then with that, they did introduce an idea, which again I thought was really, really good. He said every picture is a picture of infinity.
I loved that.
That was good, wasn't it? I thought I liked that as well.
The picture isn't just a flat plane in front of you. He talks about what's behind, what's in the picture, what's behind the wall, and all that. So that part of it,
I like
and aspects of this really reminded me of the Mezzotint by M.R. James, which is about a kind of engraving where it's sent to a guy who's in Cambridge University, I think. I might be totally wrong and shot down in flames by M.R. James fans for that. But so he sent this early Victorian print of a house. He thinks the print is very boring, puts it on his desk, forgets about it, then comes back later in the day, shows it to another friend, and the friend says,
yes, I remember this.
I actually think this is quite a good engraving. Like, the figure in it is really good. And the guy's like, I don't remember a figure, but at that point doesn't look at it. And then I think later on, his kind of flunky, who comes, to kind of sweep and dust and do stuff for him, they come back to his flat and they find that this guy is kind of zapped out in his chair because there is this horrific figure in the mezzotint that's crawling towards the house. And then they go through the process of looking at this print every so often to see that this figure crawls into the house and then steals a baby out of the house and then disappears. And I think that this, this kind of idea of something within the picture, live in and kind of move in and jumping in and out. It's not a direct kind of plagiarism, but I think it's that kind of idea. Original.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, one of the ideas I thought was great in this, there was a point when they confront the new landlord, and they realise that Sapphire and Steel are both seeing a different man. And I thought that was
cool.
I thought that was a really cool idea. One was seeing a young man, which was the son of That's My Boy, which was like a sitcom where a guy's got two mums for some reason. I can't remember why. And an older man. But I thought that was a really good idea and not something I've seen before.
I've got to say that in these 4 episodes, there was more exciting, new, kind of relevant ideas to me than in the entirety of Chris Chibnall's run of Doctor Who so far.
Wow.
They are rummaging through all the stuff upstairs, trying to work out how did he bring this guy out of pictures. They find a strange camera lens, which is like triangle. On it. They find a picture which has got the girl who's gone missing, the flatmate, in a window.
Ruth.
Yeah.
And sets up with a telescope and all this kind of stuff in order to zoom in on it. And Sapphire can put a hand over it and say there's someone missing out of this picture.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that all of those pictures which they had to show a person in and a person removed, they couldn't have done any of that on Photoshop. All of that
No.
would have...
I was going to say that Photoshop has destroyed this.
Yeah, well, it's, proper retouching with an airbrush probably at that point, and very fine little one-hair brushes. Touch people down.
I know, unfortunately, this is the limitation of the podcast and it just being audio, but I'm really, really sad that when you did finally see Ruth in the window of the one picture, she wasn't going... like that, help, I'm trapped face. She was
so
just
James
like very
is
like
doing a kind of French mime artist who used to do that on TV where they'd go along.
Kenny Everett. Being Marcel.
I'm thinking of Kenny Everett. So that sequence leads to another cliffhanger and a really horrific, brutal ending for Ruth, in that the baddie sets fire to the photo with her in, and you hear her burn to death. Which is terrifying. It's really terrifying.
In many ways, though, I think it was a release because I've written, and in red ink, Ruth is bloody dreary.
Yeah.
When they talk to her, the idea is that, obviously, that when you're trapped in a photo, they say it is like daydreaming.
Yeah.
It's like being asleep, like that. But how they conveyed this was just by talking. Like this, I don't know really.
And again, it was just a close up on a bloody
just of a photo.
There's also lots of people sitting around listening to that, and I thought that was quite creepy. That you're just watching people listening to a voice, and I know that sounds crap, but it was quite creepy for me.
Well, I did find it immensely creepy. Yeah. Because it's if you can maintain an atmosphere with the bare minimum of stuff, which is literally a photo and some people looking at a photo, you're doing quite a good job. You know, these days it would be massive pumping music, people screaming. Like, to digress slightly, I remember where the BBC redid Terry Nation's Survivors.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
In the noughties. I can't remember when in the noughties now. And some TV documentary compared the start of that, the original, which I think was like 1974, 1975, something like that, to the start of the reboot. So the original, when the woman wakes up and finds that Peter Bowles is dead, her husband is Peter Bowles, he's dead, she goes outside, and then it's like a crane shot looking down on her, and then they compare it to the 2005 version or whatever it was. It's a totally different thing. Massive crash zoom on her face, she's screaming. Like, the music is like, da, 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 da. Whereas the original one is just like this woman going outside, and it's totally silent. And the impact when she realizes she's in a dead world.
Silence is more effective.
Yeah. The key part of it is silence, because you're watching a bloody visual thing, so you don't need this constant like.
They find some pictures where the landlord of the house has been putting old pictures and new pictures together, and they said that is what released him. Not only that, it was also him building a giant kaleidoscope machine, which is so he can recreate the title sequence of Strictly Come Dancing in his own. But apparently this is what he was doing to impress the young girl.
Yeah, all girls are impressed by photographic techniques, aren't they, John?
Well, yeah. What they love is a like a slide sandwich put through a kaleidoscope. Everyone loves that. I've written for around this part, pulp, different class cover.
Yeah.
So there's a part where Joanna Lumley is turned into a stand-in from Pulp's different class cover. She's just a black and white cutout, which was a really good effect.
Oh, but so did we have a bit previous to that where one of the children gets hugged?
Was cuddled.
That made me laugh out. That I thought that was funny. I laughed because you could see it coming from the
one of the children turned into
a cardboard figure.
I did really enjoy that. But also what was weird is that the kids at some points looked normal, but at the other points they looked like they'd been kind of painted as kind of sepia colour.
Yeah, but they were saying they meant to look and smell like photographs. And chemicals and all that kind of stuff.
So it's not the actual children that are coming out of the photos. It's like these weird shades of
them.
The images, which again is another terrifying idea, which is this is so much material in these 4 episodes that it really blew me away, actually.
They then decide that they're going to try and capture this creature, this no-faced man.
They kind of reverse engineer the idea that the man has been doing these experiments. They reverse engineer his machine. And this is the point where it's slightly lost me, but it's still so charming that you kind of forgive it. And it's like as if putting a camera down a kaleidoscope and taking a picture of a slide is going to release this ancient evil. That isn't really like, I can believe if you go into a pyramid and you open a tomb, that's more of a kind of, that's more likely to release evil than just taking a photo of a slide in a box. And so they do that, but then in the process, they somehow become turned into a photograph themselves, don't they?
Yes.
Which I can't really remember how that happened. But it's a good sequence, and the photo I thought looked like a really cool kind of New Romantics LP sleeve.
Very early 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah, all of this is very early 80s, isn't it? And then they're kind of trying to telepathically reach out to Liz, aren't they, to get her to come and kind of help them.
And my notes are, Liz Dupre, in inverted commas, does not give a shit, and I've underlined it at various times. They're like, but don't you want to know what happened to your friend? Not particularly. She says, just, not really. But she's been missing. Well, I'm sure she'll turn up. Bye! Yeah. And I was like, cold-blooded. She really doesn't care at all.
She comes back in, and then they have this kind of not very effective sequence where...
They manage to trap him by surrounding him by mirrors, so that all he can see is himself. Then they find a toy kaleidoscope, which they put him into that. Yeah. And then they say that they're going to go and take him and put it on a ship, which is about to sink in the Arctic.
That's right, because in many ways as well, Joanna Lumley is like a living Wikipedia, isn't she?
Yeah.
She like every now and then she'll just go, oh yes, the first photograph, and then just spews out facts about that.
Yeah.
Or yes, on this date, blah, she'll just tell you everything you need to know. And so she just says, this boat is going to sink. We're going to go and put it on it.
Yeah.
And we'll worry about this in 80 years' time.
Yeah. Which is... So you never see, I don't know, Cleves, do you ever see how they move around through time, or they just...
Certain points where they say they've been waiting for 80, 90 years for this thing to happen. So it's a case of that either time passes differently for them, or they travel through time.
They're extra dimensional, aren't
exactly.
they?
Yeah, but there was a point at the beginning where he's saying that someone should have been here waiting for this to happen.
Yes.
Rather than come in when it's after it's happened.
Yeah.
And it's always them who have to come and mop this sort of stuff up.
Well, that's a good get out clause for the show happening, isn't it? Because if there was someone there waiting to stop stuff, obviously you wouldn't be able to write the story, because the story would never happen, which is good writing.
And there are other stories where you meet some of the other elements as well, like lead and things like that.
Right.
Yeah, so that's...
Oh, I might want to watch some more of this. I thought that from this watch, the kind of mystery element of the two characters really did remind me of early Doctor Who, and I think that's something that Doctor Who sadly has lost now, which is like this thing of you don't know all you know about the Doctor is he's called the Doctor, he's with his granddaughter Susan, and he's in the TARDIS, and they travel through time. And for ages, that's all you know, and I think that's all you really need to know, actually, because then you can get straight into the adventures. And that's what works so well here, is because the two leads are very, very engaging.
So with no consultation, we don't talk to each other, ahead of time. What I wrote was like Doctor Who, written by Beckett. Right? And I'll tell you why. Because he said it's a high concept idea, but one set or one studio set, and at times the dialogue was, like you said, almost kind of like Beckett or like Tom Stoppard. For example, an interchange between the two characters that went like this. It's the photograph. The photograph? Yes, the photograph. The photograph? Yes, the one I'm looking at it right now. But it is the same photograph. It looks the same. It is the photograph. The photograph? Yes. Do you know what I mean? And there were 3 or 4 instances like that.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this is just kind of very... And again, the sort of writing that you don't get on TV anymore.
Things like that were on TV at that point,
weren't
they? That's, BBC Two would have had those
something
kind of
like
plays
that,
on a Saturday night. You wouldn't have had bloody Paul Whitehouse and Bob Mortimer going bloody fishing. You would have had some high culture, and TV really can't do high culture anymore very well, I don't think.
I think it does it in a different way. Do you know what I mean?
It does
kind of
it
like the long form.
yeah.
Because in one of my sort of concluding remarks on this was, I'd love to see this kind of rebooted and redone.
I'd really
properly.
like to see it. Yeah.
Well, that was one of the things I was going to ask you. If they were going to redo this, who would you cast as Sapphire and Steel? In Big Finish, it's David Warner as Steel.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who the lady is. Who's
I didn't know the lady's name.
Bella Emberg.
And Russ Abbott.
No.
Rufus Sewell. Did you see The Pale Horse? The Agatha Christie's Pale Horse?
Yes.
Really, really good. Kind of folk horror turns into murder mystery type thing. I think it was on earlier last year. I think he'd be really good in this. He's a handsome guy, and I think he's got this kind of aloof quality, British kind of, weird quality.
He was also the lead Nazi in the Amazon version of Man in the High Castle.
Yeah.
I got Sophia Miles in my mind for Sapphire.
Who's that?
She was Madame de Pompadour in The Girl in the Fireplace.
Oh, Cleaver, she's got no career. She hasn't been on TV for like 15 years. Think of someone younger, Cleves.
It's got to be younger.
Holly Willoughby?
Yeah, Holly Willoughby. Hannah
in her
Spirit.
first dramatic. Yeah.
So these are just basically the women who fancy Cleves, yeah?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
I was just going to say that my other takeaway from this and my sort of rant when I was thinking about it was it touched on a couple of really lovely themes, which I think do work in horror, which is number one, and you've mentioned it already, the falseness of memory and how memory can trick you. I thought that's really, really great.
Yeah.
And also the notion of photography and old photos. There is something really spooky about old pictures. And
Love
Ross,
it.
do you remember when we went to see Ghost Stories?
Yes.
And we were lucky enough afterwards, the brilliant Andy Nyman, who's the co-writer of the play, came out and was talking to us. He was top man. He was brilliant. And he was saying to my sister, because the play starts off with an old black and white photograph. Blown up huge.
That's right.
And and at the time I remember thinking, oh shit, this is going to be terrifying.
Yeah.
And we were saying, and he confirmed this, he said there is something inherently creepy about old photographs.
Always, yeah.
And I thought, yeah. And so for me, it dated badly, like a lot of the things we've looked at so far have.
Yeah.
But I could see that within it, there were some really nice ideas, which are
great
brilliant
ideas.
horror tropes. It said like the falseness and the how memory can let you down, and like he said that whole sequence when she was like, I can't remember what he looks like. I thought that was brilliant. That was really good, and I do think you could do an even better story based on not with better technology or anything like that, but kind of like pictures jarring you and reminding you of something that you've forgotten about is really, really good.
Yeah,
So anyway,
I think you could do something really good with people realizing that they're all seeing the same person differently,
and that's a good as well. Yeah.
and trying to work out why that's the
It's
case.
a really good idea. I made a note about halfway through that Joanna Lumley's performance really reminded me of Barbara Shelley's performance in Quatermass and the Pit.
Ooh.
I'm not sure if either of you have seen it.
No.
She's very icy.
I've seen the TV series. TV
Oh my
version.
god, the TV version is. Oh, which TV version now?
Quatermass of the Pit is where they find the spaceship under. Yeah.
Are you talking about...
I've seen the black and white original version of it, not the film.
So this isn't that. So this is the Colour Hammer film that they made in 1967. She's this very icy scientist who then turns out that she is the conduit for the Martians. In the same way that obviously Joanna Lumley in this was like the conduit for the kind of going back in time and stuff. And I thought the two performances are very similar, kind of quite you could say that it helps someone with a kind of lack of range, but also they're perfect for the part that they're playing. And I thought Joanna Lumley was amazing in this, actually.
I remembered another bit I really liked in this is when they establish that Sapphire and Steel can talk telepathically, and then there's a point when they're talking telepathically, and then the other guy breaks in and says, I can talk like that if you want me to, and it made you feel like, oh, actually they've come up against someone who's got unexpected power. And is this someone who's could actually be a match for them? That was good.
Yes, very good indeed.
I think John said he would recommend this.
I would recommend this 100%. I'm just seeing if I've got any more notes. I came into it after being on the phone to the tax people for an hour, and that was not just talking to the tax people, that was sitting listening to a recorded message saying that they would get to me eventually. So I wasn't really looking forward to it, and it was really like tipping a nice refreshing kind of drink through my brain.
Nice.
And making me think about good ideas and just really interesting stuff, actually. And I would probably watch the rest of all of it now.
Fantastic.
I thought it was that good. So yeah, I would give it 5 out of 5.
Wow.
There's obviously shortcomings in some of the story and stuff, but I think the kind of charm of it, and I think that they know that the material they're working with is slightly dodgy, but they play it totally straight and with really great gusto, and that's something that I really admire, and I thought it was brilliant.
I find that these are not as good as my memory of them are, but talking through it with people afterwards, and in our house we've talked about it after the fact. I think that the content and the ideas behind it are high enough to sort of push through maybe some of the
shortcomings.
The shortcomings from it being a dated piece of television, and it's
Always, yeah.
So I would give it a 3. I think I'd give it a 3.
So you've given it less of a score than the Rats.
No, I give the Rats 3, didn't I?
Oh, hang on. We haven't done the Rats yet.
No, we haven't. Okay.
That's very Sapphire and Steel. In the future, when we do the Rats, when time slips through, Ross might give for us?
Actually, in which case, I'm going to give it a 3.5 because I've got a feeling I might give the Rats a 3.5 in the future.
You did. You gave the Rats.
Oh, I will.
You will give the Rats 3.5. Yeah.
Okay, James. How about you? Would you recommend it?
This is, once again, as I don't want to make it so that we're too similar all the time, but as with Dracula AD 1972, I would agree with Ross's assessment. And I'd say that I found that at times that the pacing was glacial and, very much of another time. And I won't lie, after a day's online Zoom teaching, watching an episode, I did almost feel myself nod off at one point during the first episode. And also I thought it was limited, and it said some of the science was very, very wonky behind it. But that said, as we said, the ambition of it, the themes and ideas, if I read tomorrow they're rebooting or they're redoing Sapphire and Steel, and it's going to be like edgier science fiction, edgier horror tropes and ideas, bang, I'd be absolutely on board with it. So I enjoyed having my first experience of it. I don't feel like you guys do, like the mad desire to watch more of them, but it was a very interesting watching experience. So it's a 3 from me.
Oh, excellent. Brilliant.
I think if I read next week that Russell T Davies was bringing this back in an expanded Sapphire and Steel universe, I would be absolutely over the moon, because I think that's the kind of thing that would just be brilliant to see on TV. There's so little stuff like this on TV these days now that's like mainstream television that...
It's just mental that nearly 12 million people watched it.
Watch that. And as I said, watching a black and white picture, just one side being focused on and then the other. Yeah.
I know there's more stuff to do, but you do have to question why, like, people are chuffed now when Doctor Who gets like 4 million viewers on New Year's Day when there's nothing else to do.
In lockdown.
Like, what are the other 60 million people doing in Britain other than watching TV?
Minecraft. Kids are doing Minecraft, aren't they? Is that the kids still into that? I don't know.
Oh, God, no.
Yes, they are.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so that was Sapphire and Steel. Next is something horrific. This is where we recommend something which we've enjoyed since our last podcast.
Over the summer, I invested heavily in DVDs of the BBC's Ghost Stories at Christmas strand. So obviously you've got the M.R. James stuff. Then you've got Charles Dickens' The Signalman with Denham Elliott, which is obviously like AAA mega. Then they went into modern territory with the two final ones. One I haven't watched. The first of those two is called Stigma. And it's a very strange little half hour of television, all shot on 16mm film. It's a very, very, very odd piece of TV with very strange kind of structure and pacing. A bit like our friends Sapphire and Steel. And it's basically about a woman who lives in a Victorian looking farmhouse next to the stones at Avebury. I don't think Avebury's named at any point, but one day some swarthy, lusty looking builders come to take a big rock out of her garden because she wants to landscape her garden. So they have a lot of sweaty torsos, heaving around on this rock. Then they bring in an absolutely ancient-looking tractor and try and lift up this rock. As soon as they lift up this rock, there's some kind of transference between what's under the rock and the main character of this, who is this lady. And then she goes through a weird sequence of cooking a big piece of roast beef, spending a lot of time in the bathroom, half naked. So there's a lot of gratuitous nudity, of course, because it's 1977. There's a lot of blood and some very weird blood effects. Her daughter is very weird. Her husband then is played by Peter Bowles, who makes a second appearance this week, which is nice to hear about Peter Bowles again. And then Then there's this sequence where she's bled all night. Peter Bowles puts her in the back of this Volvo estate, and then tries to drive her to hospital while the GP is trying to bring her back to life. And then at the end, she's dead. And then it finishes. There's no explanation. There's nothing. It's mad. It's absolutely mad. It's like and
it got 24 million viewers.
There's hardly any dialogue. And you have really got no idea what's just happened to this woman. You don't know what was under the stone. You don't know why she started bleeding. You do find out there's a body under the stone, which was kind of stuck there with knives to pin it down or something. But you've no idea why that this has transferred into this woman. But I would recommend watching it. It's beautifully shot. It's a very, very weird bit of mid-70s folk horror that has more than a foot in the kind of exploitation horror that British cinema was doing at that point.
So much stuff got made back then when no one had to explain why they were doing it. It's just incredible, isn't it?
I think back then you had men that had probably made money in like casinos or like selling fags or something like that then were just like, oh, I'm going to be a film magnate now, and they'd basically like meet some idiot in a party who wanted to make a horror film. They'd pay for the horror film. It would be absolutely crap.
Well, also you're aware that so many of them were tax avoidance schemes.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with funnily enough, the name of one of our hosts, Rossminster, a tax company that was run by two ex-income tax employees, and they had a vast swathe of the great and the good, including like Led Zeppelin and Roger Moore.
No way.
Basically, of course, because tax in Britain in the 70s was so incredibly high. Scum, for example, is a film that was made as a tax write-off.
Yeah.
No way.
I'm reading the Michael Palin diaries at the moment, and when they were doing the Holy Grail, like, all these bands were just desperate to try and put money into it, and it must have been in order. Like Led Zeppelin wanted to do the music for the Holy Grail, and it must have been a way of them getting some kind of tax deal.
Yeah.
Was that was George Harrison that put money into that? Wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. George Harrison was Handmade Films.
Yeah.
We've got and did With Nail and I, etc.
Time Bandits.
Yeah.
So this week I'm doing something called the Battersea Poltergeist, which is on BBC Sounds.
Oh yeah.
So, is it any good?
Yeah, it's really good. I think I'm up to episode 2 or 3 at the moment, so they're releasing them weekly. Very much inspired by the Enfield Poltergeist.
That's not Harry Enfield, is it? Please.
No, it's not.
We've got to do something on the Enfield Poltergeist.
Definitely,
We've got to find.
If I can find, there was a Halloween special about the Enfield Poltergeist which shit me up, but they played the tape of it. What's a uterus?
There is.
Hot Lego.
There is a series called Paranormal Lockdown with Nick Groff, who used to be friends with Zach Bagans, but now he's gone off to do his own show called Paranormal Lockdown with Katrina Weedman. They go to Pontefract, the town of my birth, and they spend, I think, 3 nights in a council house, which was famously haunted by the Black Monk.
So but mainly made puddles of water. So if you look into that one, but there was
maybe we should review that. I think we should review that one at some point.
Well, there's a really good drama about the Enfield Poltergeist with Timothy Spall in it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we could do that one. But yeah, the Battersea Poltergeist, they're making it out as if it's a real investigation, so that it's kind of a mixture of them doing sort of experiments of like how loud you need to have the sound of banging for your neighbours to hear it down the road, alongside them doing reenactments of what actually happened. For me, the reenactments of what I'm doing actually in inverted commas, that sort of lets it down a little bit, because I feel like the acting on there's not that great, but everything else around it is really good, and I'm really intrigued to see what happens next on it. So recommend getting in on that one before it ends.
The thing that I've got into I've been fascinated by, and one of my favourite books from last year was a book called Republic of Lies by a lady called Anna Merlin, and it's a terrific book. And I've always been fascinated by this. Why do people believe in conspiracy theories? What is it about people? And because I don't believe in them at all. I don't believe it's nonsense. We can go into it, and I spend a lot of time as a teacher having to explain to students and sort of teenagers saying, well, think this through logically. Imagine the amount of people that would have to be in on this, because we often talk about things like people who believe the moon landing was faked and things such as that. You have to go, well, no, but just think about it for a second. In order to make this happen, think about how hard that would be to do. So, but then, of course, people don't think logically. So anyway, I've always been fascinated in that. And then recently, of course, and especially with the attack on Washington, by kind of Trump supporters in inverted commas, just before the inauguration of Joe Biden, really brought to my attention this whole thing about QAnon, and people that are into QAnon. And I was always vaguely aware of it, but I was like, well, what is this? And then I've retweeted it recently. A journalist for Paste Online, which is an American site, hats off to this guy. It's one of the longest articles I've read in years, but it's genius. He said, I think someone needs to go through and basically as a historical record and say, here's what these people believed and here's how their beliefs adapted over time. And it's just the most fascinating thing and the most balmy thing you've ever seen. Their belief that kind of like all of Hollywood, not some, all of Hollywood, the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton, they're all involved in a satanic kind of underground paedophile sex ring. Literally underground in some cases. Literally underground, and they're drinking from the pineal gland the fear of young children, which is helping them to stay young and keep alive. And thousands of people are believing it. So now I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated into A, how do people believe this shit? And B, how has this spread? So I found, after reading this really amazing article, they recommended the QAnon Anonymous podcast, which is some guys in the States doing just that, kind of breaking down, every time people, every time there have been any of these announcements from Q, just basically saying how mad and vague they are, and just saying like what have people's responses been, and then in between all of those, they've had people on kind of saying, what is blood libel? Why is it that kind of like that, the protocols of the Elders of Zion? Why does that keep coming back up? So I've just been listening to that and enjoying the hell out of it. Yeah. So there you go. That's my recommendation. It's very good.
Next time, we are going to be doing James Herbert's The Rats.
The Rats.
Oh, no.
Brace yourselves, people.
Or it might be brilliant. Tune in and find out.
Okay. John's battery's gone, so what I'm going to do is just say thank you very much for listening. So if you and I finish off, and then I'll copy some audio from him from another episode saying goodbye, yeah?
Okay, absolutely. Okay. Well, as always, thank you, everybody, wherever this finds you. Hope you enjoyed our rambling ways, and we'll look forward to joining you again soon with The Rats.
Yeah, thank you very much. And cue John saying peace and love, peace and love.
Love, light and peace.
Love and light.
Love, light and peace. Love, light and peace. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You have been listening to The General Witchfinders. Support the show and continue the conversation at patreon.com/General Witchfinders. Subscribe and spread the word at generalwitchfinders.com. Farewell, and don't have nightmares.